This is a Fox News alert, and certainly surprising. A federal judge in Texas has just struck down Obamacare. True story. Judge Reed O'Connor says the individual mandate, the part of the law that requires you to participate, is unconstitutional, and because it cannot be separated from the rest of the law, which it cannot be, the entire law is invalid. Now, the individual mandate, you'll remember, was previously upheld by the Supreme Court, but on the grounds that it was a tax. The fine for not following the mandate was eliminated last year, so O'Connor says this makes that ruling invalid because it's no longer a tax. The ruling is certain to be appealed, obviously. Obamacare, by the way, was passed on March 21st, 2010. It was signed 3 days later. Wow. Didn't see that coming. We'll continue to follow.
Right now, a federal judge just ruled the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is unconstitutional because without the individual mandate, the penalty that mandates you have insurance, the law is invalid because it cannot pay for itself. Jason.
Wow. Trace, thank you. President Trump reacting to Obamacare ruling, writing, "As I predicted all along, Obamacare has been struck down as an unconstitutional disaster. Now, Congress must pass a strong law that provides great health care and protects pre-existing conditions. Mitch and Nancy, get it done." Joining me now with reaction, Florida Congressman Gates and Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. Now, Congressman Biggs, I served with these two gentlemen in the 115th Congress. It's good to have you on tonight. I do appreciate this. I want to start with Andy Biggs. The Republicans are soon to be in the minority of the House. How do you keep all of these Republican-led investigations going, or are they just going to be dismissed?
President Trump takes to Twitter praising the decision by a federal judge to rule Obamacare unconstitutional in the state of Texas. The president said Friday Congress must now pass a strong law which provides great health care and protects pre-existing conditions. The president called on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Speaker-designate Nancy Pelosi to get it done within the next year. One America's Karen McKinney has more on that ruling.
A federal judge strikes down Obamacare as unconstitutional. Friday's ruling boils down to this. Without the individual mandate, the Affordable Care Act can no longer be classified as a tax and therefore falls outside the jurisdiction of Congress. The decision comes almost exactly 1 year after President Trump signed the tax cut bill into law, which eliminated Obamacare's individual mandate. The change goes into effect next month, meaning Americans will no longer be financially penalized for failing to get health insurance.
We got rid of the mandate, right? We got rid of the individual mandate, folks. The most unpopular part. And we've decimated Obamacare, and now we're managing it properly, and your premiums aren't going up nearly as fast. You had the privilege of paying a fortune in order to have the privilege of not having to pay a fortune for bad health care, right? Not too good. Not too good.
The lawsuit was brought on by 20 states, including Texas, following the repeal of the individual mandate. The coalition of states also argued in court that Obamacare was straining resources, as large numbers of Americans came to depend on the state for insurance. Critics on the left are trying to use this issue to accuse Republicans of trampling protections for those with pre-existing conditions. However, this is simply not true, as President Trump has made it a priority to protect access to quality, affordable health care for all Americans.
And Republicans will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. They're trying to put a false narrative out there. And if there is a Republican out there that doesn't, let me know. Believe me, him or her, we'll talk him into it. We're going to protect pre-existing conditions.
Despite the judge's ruling, the court has made no move to block enforcement of the law. As of now, about 4 million people have signed up for Obamacare during the past 6 weeks of open enrollment, much less than in previous years. Still, the issue is far from settled, as Democrat leaders from states including California are considering appealing the decision. Karen McKinney, One American News.
Story at 6:30. More on a huge ruling out of Texas, effectively ending the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare.
In fact, President Trump just tweeted about it, calling it, quote, great news for America. Now, the issue is the elimination of the tax penalty for not having insurance coverage. That Texas judge ruled that it makes the law unconstitutional. The push to end that law came after a lawsuit from a group of 20 states led by Texas. The ruling now casting doubt for millions of people in our state who rely on covered California for their insurance plans.
KPX5 political reporter Melissa Kane has been digging into the legal aspects of this ruling for us. Melissa, break this down. What does it mean exactly?
Well, for right now, it means everything is going to be okay. We've got some other legal maneuvering to do, but people should definitely sign up for insurance. Do not let this ruling sort of dissuade you from enrolling in Covered California if that's what you plan to do. Please go do that. This is not an injunction nationwide. It's just a decision, and it is one that will be appealed immediately. I think Javier Becerra is probably at the courthouse literally right now.
They're going to be working all weekend.
Filing. Yeah, definitely just ruin the holidays for a lot of law clerks. They will definitely be appealing this up to the Fifth Circuit. This was sort of a lower court, a district court judge, a single judge, so not a 3-judge panel at a circuit
But it's important. The time is important because it's an open enrollment period here. This is time for people to do this.
Exactly. I mean, it's a really, really unfortunate timing. So I would just want to stress that people should breathe and enroll and just allow the legal machinations to go forward. Now, at the heart of all this, of course, is this issue of the tax penalty. And if you remember, all these many years ago, when the ACA was first passed and it was challenged at the U.S. Supreme Court, and Chief Justice Roberts famously wrote an opinion basically saying that because this was Congress's taxing power, this was constitutional. People opposing Obamacare said Congress doesn't have the right to force us to get health care. This is going way beyond what the Constitution allows. And so Roberts said, no, this is taxing, and that's okay. What the judge said today is now that in 2017, Congress removed that mandate. You remove the tax. And so when the tax is gone, then all that's left is this huge overreach by Congress without the attached taxing power. And so what that means practically is serious issues for the mandate to cover pre-existing conditions. That would be a big loss if rolled back for a lot of people. So that's something that people are very concerned about, other kinds of financial incentives, et cetera. But again, I really doubt it's going to come to that. There are really good legal arguments on the other side. Conservative and liberal lawyers agree that this will probably be upheld, but that is basically what has happened. When the tax goes, then Congress's authority to mandate all of these things, according to the judge, went with it. But again, not an injunction, will be appealed. Please, please, please enroll in health care for next year. You don't want to fail to do it and then find out that you could have and you should have.
And if you have covered California, nothing changes as of today. Nothing changes.
That's right. As of today, nothing has changed. This is just one district court judge ruling. There's a lot more action.
Striking down Obamacare.
The federal judge in Texas ruling the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional because the penalty for not having coverage was eliminated. The decision, if upheld, could affect tens of millions of Americans and their health care.
The potential impact here huge. The president overnight hailing this as a victory. Meanwhile, Democratic leaders are vowing to fight in a battle that seems likely to head to the Supreme Court. ABC's Tara Palmieri is at the White House with the latest. Tara, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. It's the latest battle over President Obama's signature health care law. It survived the Supreme Court twice, but now a Texas federal judge is calling it unconstitutional, and it will likely head back to the high court. Overnight, a federal judge striking down the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, dealing a major blow for millions of Americans. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor siding with a coalition of 20 Republican states, declaring the individual mandate unconstitutional, adding that the remaining provisions of the ACA are invalid. President Trump quickly tweeting his approval. Quote, now Congress must pass a strong law that provides great health care and protects pre-existing conditions. The ruling, a big win for Trump after touting a health care overhaul in the lead up to the midterms.
If Democrats gain power on Tuesday, one of their very first projects will be a socialist takeover of American health care.
And it comes after multiple failed attempts to repeal and replace Obamacare back in 2017. The late Republican Senator John McCain most notably in opposition. Without a hard repeal, Republicans chipped away at President Obama's signature health care bill, effectively ending the financial penalties associated with the individual mandate, which according to the Texas District Court now makes Obamacare unconstitutional. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who is expected to become Speaker, blasting the decision, saying the Democrats will intervene in the appeal process. Quote, tonight's district court ruling exposes the monstrous endgame of Republicans' all-out assault on people with pre-existing conditions and Americans' access to affordable health care. The ruling coming on the eve of tonight's deadline to sign up for coverage in 2019, which Americans can still do before the clock hits midnight. Earlier this week, President Obama urging them to do just that.
Sign up for health insurance at healthcare.gov before the deadline on December 15th. You can do it right now.
Back now live with Tara Palmieri. Tara, what's going to happen next, and what do those millions of enrolled Americans do?
Well, Eva, for now, nothing changes for people who are enrolled in the program, but there is an element of uncertainty as the ruling goes through the appeal process that will likely go all the way to the Supreme Court. Eva?
All right, Tara Palmieri at the White House. Tara, thank you.
One thing people should know is that the White House says current enrollment won't be affected by this ruling. That said, this decision is a political victory for Republicans who have opposed the Affordable Care Act from the very beginning. And as you mentioned, it sets in motion yet another legal battle over Obamacare while throwing into limbo the health coverage for millions of Americans.
This morning, Obamacare back in the crosshairs after a federal judge in Texas ruled the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional late Friday. President Trump hailing it as great news for America. The decision threatens health care coverage for some 20 million Americans and sets up a new legal showdown over former President Barack Obama's signature achievement.
Health care in America is a privilege, not for the few, but a right for everybody.
In the ruling, U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor agreed with a group of 20 Republican-led states that it's unconstitutional to mandate people buy health insurance and tax those who don't comply. The Democratic response was swift. House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi saying the ruling exposes the monstrous endgame of Republicans' all-out assault on people with pre-existing conditions and Americans' access to affordable health care. The top Senate Democrat, Chuck Schumer, saying the ruling seems to be based on faulty legal reasoning, and hopefully it will be overturned. The judge said last year's Republican tax cut bill knocked the constitutional foundation from under Obamacare by eliminating a penalty for not having coverage. If the ruling is upheld, it could roll back Obamacare protections for people with pre-existing medical conditions. President Trump on Friday called on Congress to pass new health care legislation, something not likely to happen as Democrats take control of the House next month. The White House says the Affordable Care Act will remain in place for now, while the new ruling is appealed.